This is Al Jazeera.
And a warm welcome from me, David Foster, to this Al Jazeera News Hour. These are the stories we're covering in detail in the next 60 minutes. The regime is crumbling. Syria's former Prime Minister speaks for the first time since his defection. Forced from their homes and not welcome in neighbouring countries. An exclusive report on Myanmar's Rohingyas. Growth in the Eurozone goes into reverse, although Germany and France did do better than expected. Plus,
I'm Daniel Lack, and I'll be reporting from Vancouver on the end of a long public inquiry into Canada's worst ever serial killer case.
as Syria's Prime Minister, he was at the top of the ruling hierarchy and the Ba'ath Party. But Riyad Hijab's defected to the opposition, and he's been calling for other officials to do the same. He's given his first public interview in the Jordanian capital, Amman.
I confirm that the regime is decaying morally, financially and economically. It is also militarily deteriorating. It's losing ground and is in control of no more than 30% of the country. Let the revolution continue in this civilized manner to maintain the integrity of the people and the state institutions which we built with our sweat and effort. Here I confirm that I do not intend to take any office now or in the future, and as I have devoted my efforts to exert all of my power for the sake of my homeland and for the sake of God, I am indebted to my country, and it's time to pay back through sacrifice and high morals until we realize a democratic, civilized, civil state where all citizens are equal. Now the opposition abroad is invited to unite and unify the ranks to achieve the same goal.
Well, the United Nations humanitarian chief is in Syria. She's been meeting the country's foreign minister. Valerie Amos is on a 3-day trip to discuss ways to help civilians caught in the fighting. And she's due to hold talks with the Red Crescent and other humanitarian groups. The UN believes that 1.5 million Syrians have been displaced by the conflict. Al Jazeera has an exclusive report from inside a Damascus suburb which has been devastated by the fighting. Government troops and rebels have been battling for control of the capital. Citizen journalist Mata Ismail filmed inside the neighborhood Tadamun, and we've translated his words.
The fighters of Ali bin Abi Talib Brigade say entering Al-Tadamun neighborhood in Syria is a dangerous journey. They walked us through this devastated area. It's yet another Damascus suburb that was part of the security crackdown by the army and security forces. It was shelled by artillery and jet fighters. The suburb also saw intense fighting with opposition rebels who say they are protecting the residents. Devastation and destruction after 4 days of continued bombardment. These wrecked buildings and empty streets were once full of life. Bombed buildings were turned into debris.
I was forced to get out of the house, shooting and shelling. We almost suffocated inside, shelling and bullets. My daughter's son is sick. Look at this, they have destroyed us and left nothing for us.
This resident tells us what happened.
They said we will kill the men and rape the women. What do you think, ladies? We will rape you. I begged them for God's sake to leave us alone. Do not touch us. Then they left.
Al-Tadamun suburb now seems completely deserted. Most of the residents have run for their lives to other areas they think are safer. Some are even living out in the open. Some of the suburb's residents were buried in this public park. Mourners could not get to the graveyard. They have been besieged for days.
We're joined by Ammar Waqqaf from the Syrian Social Club, a London-based group supporting President Bashar al-Assad. The former Prime Minister says only 30% of the country in the control of the regime. It's not much, is it?
Well, I don't believe so. I think there is always a rhetoric to push the supporters of President Assad down to the minority level. So the 30% that he meant probably means the minorities of 30%. And I don't think that is really true. I think that the government is still functioning in almost all the areas of the country. People, you know, go to their work every day, and in a sense, the hit-and-run tactics of certain areas of the insurgency does not mean that the government is not in control.
Important word you used there: government in control in almost all areas. In which areas is it not?
Well, obviously there are a few neighborhoods in Aleppo that the government is yet to seize control of from the rebels. They started at about 3 weeks ago an offensive in Aleppo, and they took hostage some neighborhoods, and the government troops are over there, and in the sense they are progressing.
We see the economy appearing to hurt because of sanctions. We see the rebels seemingly gaining more sophisticated weapons with the apparent shooting down of a Syrian government jet. The balance of power would appear to the outsider to be tipping slightly.
Well, obviously, with all the sophisticated weapons that we hear about that the rebels are getting, yes, the armed groups will be getting more firepower and more sophisticated firepower, but that doesn't mean that they will be able to convince a lot of people to join them. We've seen their brutality very recently with the beheading of people and throwing them from the top of the roofs. So I don't think people are sympathizing with them a lot these days. The ex-prime minister said something about this honorable revolution, but I cannot see anything honorable in beheading a government supporter on a pavement in the middle of the night. Really.
Do you think President Assad is as secure now as he was 2 months, 3 months ago?
Well, we have to understand that the state is still functioning, its bodies are still functioning. If you think about the government, the Council of Ministers is still functioning, the army is still functioning, the security forces, the Ba'ath Party, everybody is still functioning. There have been some defections, and particularly with regards to the ex-prime minister, this one has been pretty much orchestrated in order to find a figurehead around whom people from the opposition can probably be joined together. We're not so sure whether this would happen.
But I do want to ask you the question again, because you haven't mentioned the word president or Assad, which was in my question. You've talked about the Ba'ath Party, you've talked about institutions,
yeah.
You've talked about a lot of other people. Is the president as secure now as he was a few months ago?
Well, I think to a certain extent, yes. But if we take into consideration the assassination that took place a month ago, if we take into consideration the assassination that took place of the top generals about a month ago, on the 18th of July, then obviously he's being more limited and more security measures are in place. But what I was trying to say is that the people around him, the government around him, are still the same. They are still functioning. So in a sense, he's very secure, I would say.
All right, well, we thank you very much indeed for your time on this Al Jazeera News Hour.
Thank you very much.